Okay, so let's jump right into this really powerful idea from Harvard professor Daniel Lieberman. We're going to explore why so many of us feel like we're constantly fighting a battle with our own bodies. And the core idea, it's actually simple, but it's also profound. Our bodies are ancient, but the world we're living in, it's brand new.
I mean, think about it. For literally millions of years, evolution was sculpting us for a life of constant movement, a life where food was hard to come by and always came from nature. But now, just look around at the world we actually live in. It's a world of chairs and sofas and an endless abundance of food, a lot of which was basically designed in a lab. Our bodies were built for one reality, and now we find ourselves in a completely different one.
And this huge disconnect, this clash, it's the central theme of Lieberman's incredible work, The Story of the Human Body. He's basically using our deep evolutionary past as a lens to make sense of our health problems today. And when you look through that lens, it brings up a really important question. Why are diseases like type 2 diabetes, heart disease, and so many cancers just common now when they were almost unheard of for most of human history? Well, the answer is right there in that clash between our past and our present. So, to get to the bottom of this, we first got to understand the world that actually shaped us, what our bodies came to expect as normal over all those millions of years. For about 99% of human history, this was it. This was life. Daily life meant you were almost always moving. Low to moderate intensity stuff like walking and running for miles. Your diet was just whatever you could find, wild plants, nuts, lean animals, which means it was naturally packed with fiber and nutrients, but really, really low in sugar. Everything you did required physical effort, and you lived in these tight-knit, super supportive communities. Lieberman has a name for this conflict between our ancient biology and our new world. He calls it evolutionary mismatch. And this is the key to everything. A trait that once helped us survive, like, say, our intense craving for sugar and fat to store energy when food was scarce, that very same trait becomes a huge liability when there's a donut shop on every corner. And look, this isn't just some vague idea. The data really shows the mismatch, and the numbers are honestly staggering. When you compare things like fiber, sugar, and sodium, it becomes clear we are living in a completely different nutritional universe than our ancestors. Let's just zoom in on one thing: fiber. Our hunter-gatherer ancestors, they were getting around 100 grams of fiber a day from all the wild plants they ate. Today, the average American gets about 15 grams. That's a drop of almost 90%, and that has massive consequences for our gut health and how we process everything we eat. And then there's the flip side. For our ancestors, sugar was an incredibly rare treat. Maybe some seasonal fruit, or if they got really lucky, a honey find. It made up maybe 2% of their energy. For many of us today, it's 15, 20, even 30% of our daily calories. Our bodies they're not built to handle that kind of onslaught day after day. Now, this huge shift didn't happen overnight, but in evolutionary time, it basically did. The agricultural and industrial revolutions completely changed our world, but our basic biology, our genes, they haven't had nearly enough time to catch up. This timeline really puts it all into perspective. For millions of years, we're hunter-gatherers. Then, just 10,000 years ago, which is a total blip in evolutionary time, we start farming. And then, just a mere 250 years ago, the Industrial Revolution comes along and introduces factories, processed foods, and desk jobs on a massive scale. It's like our bodies have been on this 2 million-year-long training program for one kind of life, only to be thrown into a completely different one at the last second. The perfect way to think about it is this: we are running Stone Age software on 21st century hardware. Our genes are still programmed for a world of scarcity and activity, but instead, they're getting this constant fire hose of cheap, easy energy with almost no demand for movement. And that clash, that's what creates what Lieberman calls mismatch diseases. And yeah, this list is probably going to look depressingly familiar. These aren't just random diseases that happen when we get old. They are diseases of civilization. They're the direct result of our bodies just struggling to cope with an environment they were never designed for. Even something like impacted wisdom teeth is a mismatched disease. Our jaws just don't grow as strong because we eat soft, processed foods from the time we're kids. And right here, we can see exactly what's happening on a microscopic level. This is atherosclerosis, the hardening of the arteries. It's basically a chronic inflammatory response, and it's largely driven by our modern diet and our lack of activity. This process is what leads to heart disease, the #1 killer in the modern world, yet something that was almost unheard of in our ancestors. Okay, so I know this all sounds a little bleak, right? Are we just doomed by our own success? Well, not at all. The goal here isn't to reject the modern world, but to get a whole lot smarter about how we live in it. So, does understanding all this mean we have to live in the past? Do we need to start living in caves and chasing down our dinner in the local park? Of course not. The goal is to use this powerful evolutionary knowledge to make smarter, more conscious choices, choices that actually work with our biology instead of against it. I think this is the core takeaway. We can't turn back the clock, and honestly, we wouldn't want to. But what we can do is learn the lessons of the Stone Age and apply them to our modern lives. We can literally design our environment to better suit our ancient bodies. And the takeaways are so beautifully simple, but they're incredibly effective because they line up perfectly with what our bodies evolved to expect. Move more. And that doesn't just mean logging hours at the gym, but weaving movement into your day. Eat real food, the kind your great-grandmother would actually recognize. And please don't forget the stuff that doesn't show up on a nutrition label, like sleep, stress, and community. Maybe the most empowering idea in all of Lieberman's work is this change in perspective. If you're struggling with your weight or your health, it is not because you lack willpower or because you're a bad person. You are a perfectly evolved organism living in a completely abnormal environment. Your health isn't a moral failing, it's an engineering problem. And that perspective changes the question from, what's wrong with me, to how can I better engineer my world to solve this evolutionary puzzle? It gives us a blueprint. Our bodies carry this incredibly ancient story. And the final chapter, how we use that wisdom to thrive in this modern world, that's the chapter we are all writing for ourselves right now.